This is a real business, not some kind of pet project. Catherine Langley's voice sliced through the boardroom like a razor. Her manicured fingers splayed against the sleek glass table. Her expression was cold, composed, the kind of controlled authority that left no room for debate. We need leadership that understands corporate strategy, not just someone who dabbles in experiments. I sat across from her, my spine straight despite the tremor in my fingers. 6 years. 6 years of research, of sleepless nights in the lab, of breakthrough after breakthrough that had put Langley Innovations on the map. And now, this was how it ended? My husband Andrew started to rise from his chair beside me, his loyalty flickering in his eyes. But Mom, Catherine silenced him with a single raised hand. No, Andrew, this isn't up for debate. The board agrees with me. Emily's ideas may have been interesting when we were a smaller company, but we're going public in 6 months. We need leadership with real business acumen, not a scientist who thinks she can run an enterprise. My name is Emily Carter Langley, and at 34, I was about to be shoved out of the company I had helped build from the ground up. Not that Catherine would ever acknowledge my role. To her, I was simply the woman who had married her son, the outsider who didn't quite fit into her pristine corporate world. The product launch is at a critical stage, Catherine continued, her voice laced with faux sympathy. We need someone with experience steering a company at this level. That's why Victoria Hastings will be taking over research and development, effective immediately. Victoria Hastings. She sat at the far end of the table, trying to suppress the smirk tugging at her lips. Catherine's protégé, her golden child. A Harvard MBA with the perfect credentials and the right pedigree. She had been circling my position since the day she walked in the door 3 months ago. I lowered my gaze to the documents in front of me. A transition agreement. A generous severance package, they called it. Hush money, really, meant to keep me quiet while they pushed me out. And if I refuse? I asked, my voice steady now. Catherine's smile hardened. Then we'll have to enforce your employment contract. I'm sure you remember the non-compete clause. You wouldn't be able to work in this industry for 5 years. That would be unfortunate. Oh, I remembered. I had helped draft that contract back when I believed I was protecting our company, our future. I had never imagined it would be used against me. Andrew shifted beside me, uneasy. Mom, maybe we should talk about this more. Emily's work has been— Enough, Andrew, Catherine snapped. This isn't about personal feelings. It's about what's best for the company. The board has made its decision. I glanced around the table. The board members, people I had worked alongside for years, refused to meet my gaze. They were all too afraid of Catherine Langley, the CEO who had taken her late husband's small tech firm and turned it into an industry powerhouse. But in her rush to force me out, she had forgotten something. She had forgotten that every major breakthrough, every cutting-edge technology that had made Langley Innovations a valuable acquisition target, carried my name on the patents. Not the company's, mine. But I kept that knowledge to myself as I pushed back my chair and gathered my documents. My movements were measured, my expression unreadable. I'll need time to review these with my attorney, I said evenly. Catherine waved a dismissive hand. Take all the time you need, but I expect your office cleared out by the end of the day. Victoria needs to hit the ground running. I nodded, biting back the words I truly wanted to say. Let them think they had won. Let them believe I was just another casualty, another discarded piece in their corporate chess game. As I reached the door, Victoria's voice rang out, dripping with artificial sweetness. Don't worry, Emily, she purred. I'll take good care of your projects. I didn't respond. Let her think she had my work in her hands. She and Catherine were about to learn just how wrong they were. Connections and the right background. That's all they thought mattered. They had no idea what was coming. The elevator ride down to my office felt surreal. 6 years of my life played back in flashes. The late nights perfecting prototypes. The thrill of breakthrough moments. The celebrations when we secured major contracts. I had built this company from the ground up alongside them. And now, they were cutting me out. I met Andrew here. We had both been fresh out of graduate school, full of ambition and eager to make a mark. He was different back then, before his mother's influence reshaped him into someone else. The Andrew I fell in love with would have fought for me. He would have recognized the injustice of what was happening, but that Andrew had faded somewhere between our wedding day and his promotion to Chief Strategy Officer. When I reached my office, my soon-to-be, former, office boxes were already stacked by the door. They hadn't even waited for me to agree to their terms. Typical Catherine Langley, always assuming she had already won. I sank into my chair, trailing my fingers along the smooth wooden surface of my desk. This wasn't how I had pictured leaving. I always thought I'd walk out on my own terms, maybe to launch my own company, take on a new challenge. Instead, I was being shoved aside by a woman who had never accepted me, who had always seen me as an inconvenience. The scientist who had, in her mind, trapped her son into marriage. My computer pinged, a new email. From Catherine Langley, CEO, Langley Innovations. Subject, exit process. HR will assist with your transition. Please ensure all company materials remain on the premises. We will mail any personal items after they have been cleared by security. Regards. Catherine Langley, CEO, Langley Innovations. I let out a short laugh. She really thought she had everything under control. She had probably already drafted a press release, spinning some story about exciting new leadership and fresh perspectives. She had no idea. I pulled open my desk drawer and retrieved a small USB drive, one that Catherine had no idea existed. On it was everything I needed: copies of my patent applications, email threads proving my ownership of key technologies, documentation of every innovation I had developed, while making sure to maintain my individual rights. Catherine had been so focused on pushing me out that she had forgotten one critical thing. I had never signed over my patents to Langley Innovations. They had a license to use my technology, yes, but the intellectual property itself, that belonged to me. I slipped the drive into my pocket just as a knock sounded at my door. Andrew stood there, his shoulders tense, his hands shoved into the pockets of his navy blue suit. He said softly, using the nickname he hadn't in months. I'm sorry, I tried to talk to her, but you know how she is. I looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time in a long while. When had he become this? This weak, spineless version of the man I married? Did you know? I asked, my voice calm but firm. Did you know she was planning this? His gaze dropped to the floor. She mentioned some concerns about the IPO, about how investors might perceive. Perceive what, Andrew? I cut in. That your wife actually knows what she's doing? That I'm more than just some hobby scientist playing at business? That's not fair, he said weakly. My mother is just trying to do what's best for the company. I shook my head, the weight of disappointment pressing on my chest. No, Andrew, she's doing what's best for her own image. And you're letting her, just like you always do. He took a step toward me, reaching for my hand. I pulled away. Don't, I said, just. The hurt in his eyes might have swayed me once, but not today. Not after this. I'll have my things out of the house by tonight, I told him, my voice unwavering. I think it's best if I stay at a hotel for now. Emily, you don't have to. Yes, I do. I turned back to my desk, collecting my personal items, my framed diplomas, a photo of my parents, the small robotic model I had built in college that had set me on this path. We can fix this, Andrew said, lingering in the doorway. Once the IPO is done, maybe. I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. The IPO. Right. Good luck with that. His brow furrowed. What do you mean? I picked up my bag and the small box of my belongings. Goodbye, Andrew, I said, moving past him. Tell your mother I'll have my lawyer review the documents. As I reached the door, he caught my arm. Emily, wait, what are you planning? I gently pulled my arm free, meeting his gaze one last time. You know what your mother always says, I said. It's just business. Nothing personal. I walked away, leaving him standing there, confusion in his eyes. Let him wonder. Let them all wonder. Because while Catherine Langley thought she had won, she had no idea what was coming. In 6 months, when Langley Innovations tried to launch their new product line, my product line, they would find out exactly who they had underestimated. But for now, I had work to do. Ignoring the flood of messages from Andrew, I drove through the city, my focus clear. The skyline blurred past as I headed toward the one person who understood exactly what needed to happen next. 20 minutes later, I pulled into the parking lot of Harrison and Associates, one of the top intellectual property law firms in the city. Marcus Harrison stood waiting for me in the lobby, his sharp eyes taking me in. "I saw the writing on the wall months ago," he said as he led me to his office. "Been waiting for your call." I settled into a chair, finally letting some of the tension drain from my shoulders. "Catherine finally made her move," I said. Marcus nodded, opening a thick file. "And you're sure you want to do this? Once we start, there's no turning back." I met his gaze, my decision already made. Neither am I. For the next 3 hours we combed through my patents, licensing agreements, and every meticulous paper trail I had left in place. "The timing is perfect," Marcus said. "They can't launch the new product line without your patents. Any workaround would take years. The IPO will be dead in the water." I leaned back, my mind already forming a plan. Then we wait. And when the time was right, they would learn exactly who they had underestimated. Constant surveillance. My phone buzzed again, another text from Andrew. "Mother wants to know if you've reviewed the documents yet. Please don't make this difficult." I smiled, thinking of the documents sitting untouched in my bag. Catherine's carefully crafted severance agreement, designed to keep me quiet and compliant. "Tell her I'll have an answer soon," I typed back. Oh, I'd have an answer for Catherine Langley, just not the one she was expecting. The next few weeks passed in a blur of activity. I moved into a sleek, modern apartment in Midtown, small but perfect for what I needed. During the day, I met with lawyers, investors, and potential partners. At night, I combed through my research, identifying which technologies were most crucial to Langley Innovations' upcoming product launch. Catherine, meanwhile, wasted no time erasing me from the company's history. The press release was exactly as I expected. Langley Innovations announces new R&D leadership. Victoria Hastings, to head Innovation Division as company prepares for growth. The article quoted Catherine extensively, praising Victoria's fresh perspective and strong business acumen. My name wasn't mentioned. Not once. As if my 6 years of contributions had never existed. Andrew continued to text and call, his messages growing increasingly worried as I maintained my silence. He had moved back into his parents' mansion in Buckhead temporarily, he claimed, but we both knew better. "We need to talk about this," he said, when I finally answered one of his calls. "About us?" "There's not much to talk about," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. "Your mother made her choice. You made yours by not fighting her." "What was I supposed to do, Emily? She's the CEO." "You were supposed to stand up for what was right, Andrew. For once in your life, you were supposed to stand up to her." He was silent for a long moment. "Is that why you won't sign the severance agreement? To punish me?" I almost laughed. He still didn't get it. "No, Andrew. I'm not signing it, because I don't need their money. And soon, they're going to need something from me far more than I need anything from them." "What are you talking about?" "You'll find out soon enough," I said, my tone dismissive. "Maybe your mother taught me more than she realized." I ended the call before he could respond. Let him worry. Let them all wonder. 3 months after my forced departure, Langley Innovations made their big announcement. Catherine had gathered the press, analysts, and major investors for a special presentation at their headquarters. I watched the live stream from Marcus Harrison's office, a cold smile playing at my lips as Catherine stepped onto the stage in her signature power suit. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice confident and commanding, "today marks a new chapter in Langley Innovations' history. Under the brilliant leadership of our R&D director, Victoria Hastings, we are preparing to launch a revolutionary new product line that will change the face of medical technology forever." The presentation that followed was slick, polished, full of promises about groundbreaking innovation and unprecedented market potential. Victoria stood beside Catherine, basking in the praise as they unveiled prototypes of devices that I had designed, technologies that I had created. Then came the Q&A session. A familiar voice rose from the crowd. Sarah Chen, a senior reporter from the Wall Street Journal, known for her sharp analysis of tech companies. Miss Langley, Sarah said, her voice carrying through the room, these technologies appear remarkably similar to patents held by Emily Carter Langley. Can you comment on the licensing arrangements? The briefest flicker of uncertainty crossed Catherine's face before she regained control. All intellectual property used in our products is properly licensed and documented, she said smoothly. Langley Innovations has full rights to everything we're presenting today. I turned to Marcus. He was already reaching for his phone. Shall we? He nodded, a predatory smile on his face. Time to show them what a real business looks like. I pulled out my own phone and opened the email I had prepared weeks ago. One click, and Catherine Langley's carefully constructed plans would crumble. Send it, I said. The email went out to every major tech publication, every investor following Langley Innovations, and every attendee at today's event. Breaking: legal challenge filed against Langley Innovations product line. Emily Carter Langley announces review of all technology licenses. The reaction was immediate. On the live stream, I watched as phones started buzzing throughout the audience. Catherine was still speaking, but people had stopped listening. Their faces were buried in their screens. Sarah Chen stood up again, interrupting Catherine mid-sentence. Ms. Langley, she said, we've just received a statement from Emily Carter Langley. She claims that Langley Innovations' license to use her patents expires in 3 months, before your planned product launch. Would you care to comment? The look on Catherine's face? Worth every moment of humiliation I had endured. For once, the great Catherine Langley was speechless. And this was just the beginning. The chaos that followed was everything I had anticipated, and more. Catherine tried to control the situation, but the damage was done. Investors were already leaving the presentation, phones pressed to their ears as they called their brokers. Victoria Hastings stood frozen on stage, her carefully rehearsed speech forgotten. I closed my laptop, turning to Marcus with a satisfied smile. How long before she calls? I asked. He glanced at his watch. Given her temper, 3, 2, 1. My phone lit up. Catherine Langley. Right on cue. You should take it, Marcus advised, already reaching for his notepad. Remember, every word matters now. I answered on the third ring, keeping my voice professional and calm. Hello, Catherine. What do you think you're doing? She hissed, her composure finally cracking. Do you have any idea what you've just done? Actually, I do, I replied. I'm protecting my intellectual property. Isn't that what you always taught me? Protect your assets? Your assets? She practically spat the word. Everything you developed was for Langley Innovations. You can't just... Can't what, Catherine? I interrupted. Can't stand up for myself? Can't run a real business? I let my words sink in before delivering the final blow. Check your contracts. Every patent, every innovation you just promised your investors? They're all licensed to Langley Innovations under my name, and those licenses expire in exactly 3 months. Silence. I could almost see her face, her perfectly controlled mask slipping as she realized the magnitude of her mistake. What do you want? She finally asked, her voice tight. I want what I've earned, but we can discuss the details with our respective legal teams. I'm sure you'll want to review everything thoroughly this time. This isn't over, she warned. No, I agreed. It's just beginning. Technology's legal team began flooding Marcus's office with demands and threats. They claimed my patents were developed under work-for-hire agreements. They threatened to sue me for breach of contract. They even tried to argue that my marriage to Andrew gave the company rights to my intellectual property. But Marcus and I had prepared for everything. Every contract, every patent application, every piece of documentation had been meticulously structured from the beginning. I might have been naive about office politics, but I had never been naive about protecting my work. That evening, there was a knock at my door. When I opened it, Andrew stood there, looking more disheveled than I'd ever seen him. His tie was loose, his hair messy from running his hands through it. Can I come in? He asked. Please, Emily, we need to talk. I considered turning him away, but something in his expression made me step aside. He walked in, taking in my new space, the modern furniture, the small but well-equipped home office, the wall of technical books and research journals. You've been busy, he said quietly. Someone once told me that success requires dedication, I replied, thinking of all the times Catherine had lectured me about real business. He sank onto my couch, looking defeated. Mother's furious. The board is in panic mode. Our stock dropped 15% after your announcement. 23%, I corrected him. I've been watching the markets. He looked up at me, really looked at me, perhaps for the first time in years. You planned this all along, didn't you? His voice was filled with something between disbelief and admiration, even before they pushed you out. No, I said honestly. I planned it the moment your mother made it clear that my contributions meant nothing to her. The moment she tried to steal my life's work and hand it to Victoria like it was hers to give. She didn't understand. She understood perfectly, I cut him off. She just didn't care. She never has. To her, I was just the scientist who wasn't good enough for her son, who didn't fit into her perfect corporate image. That's not true, he protested weakly. Really? I walked to my desk and pulled out a file. These are copies of emails between your mother and Victoria Hastings, going back 6 months, planning my removal, discussing how to transition my projects. His face paled. Want to know what your mother wrote about me? He shook his head, but I continued anyway. She called me a necessary inconvenience that needed to be managed out before the IPO. She said it was time for you to think about your future and consider more suitable partnerships. His hands clenched into fists. Where did you get those? I tilted my head. I'm a tech expert, Andrew, the one your mother thought was just playing at business. I sat across from him. The question is, did you know? He couldn't meet my eyes. I knew she wasn't happy about us, about how it would look to investors having a researcher in such a key position. But I never thought she'd actually do it? I asked. Or never thought I'd fight back. The silence stretched between us, thick with unspoken truths. Finally, he looked up. His blue eyes were tired, sad. What do you want, Emily? He asked. Name your price, whatever it takes to fix this. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Fix this? I shook my head. You still don't get it, do you? This isn't about money, Andrew. This is about respect, recognition for what I built. What price would you put on that? Mother will never agree to give you back your position, he said. You know how she is. I don't want my position back. I stood up. I don't want anything from Langley Innovations. He frowned. Then what do you want? I want Catherine to understand exactly what she lost when she decided to throw me away. Just then my phone buzzed, a text from Marcus. Thomson Medical just reached out. They want to meet. I smiled. Thomson Medical was Langley Innovations' biggest competitor, and they had been trying to break into the same market sector for years. You should go, I told Andrew, moving toward the door. I have a meeting to prepare for. He stood slowly, looking lost in his perfectly tailored suit. Liv, please. Don't do this. Don't destroy everything we built. I met his gaze. My voice was calm, certain. I'm not destroying anything, Andrew, I said softly. I'm building something new, something of my own. After he left, I sat at my desk and pulled up the presentation I had been working on. Thomson Medical wasn't the only company interested in my technology. Without Langley Innovations restrictions, without Catherine's constant interference, I was free to explore all the applications I had been forced to shelve. The next few weeks were a blur of meetings, negotiations, and legal maneuvers. Catherine, true to form, tried every trick she could think of to regain control. She had her PR team spin stories about corporate espionage and betrayal. She tried to pressure mutual business contacts to blacklist me. She even attempted to freeze my personal bank accounts, claiming they were tied to company assets. But for every move she made, I was 2 steps ahead. The patents were mine, the documentation was clear, and the technology market was hungry for innovation. While Langley Innovations' stock continued to fall, my own prospects were rising. Thomson Medical wasn't just interested in licensing my existing patents. They wanted to fund my research, with complete creative control, and a significant equity stake in the resulting technologies. They're offering you a seat on their board, Marcus told me during one of our strategy sessions. Catherine is going to lose her mind when she finds out. I was reviewing the proposal when my phone buzzed. Margaret Hastings. I raised an eyebrow. Should I take it? I asked Marcus. He shrugged. Could be interesting, I answered, keeping my tone neutral. Margaret. She hesitated. When she finally spoke, her voice was nervous. Nothing like the smug woman who had taken my office. I need to talk to you. In person. It's important. I considered refusing, but curiosity won out. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. There's a cafe called the Edison on Peachtree. Don't be late. The next morning, Margaret was already waiting, fidgeting with her coffee cup. Her designer's suit looked slightly rumpled, her usual perfect appearance showing signs of strain. Thank you for meeting me, she said as I sat down. I know you probably hate me. I stirred my coffee, meeting her gaze. I don't hate you, Margaret. I set my cup down, my voice calm, measured. I pity you. About fraud, is that why you're here? I asked, studying Margaret carefully. To warn me, or to save yourself? She had the grace to look ashamed. Both, she admitted. I thought I was getting my dream job. But it's all built on lies. And when it falls apart, I sat back, considering. Margaret might have been naive and ambitious, but she wasn't evil. She was just another pawn in Catherine's chess game. Send me copies of everything, I said finally. All the files, all the documentation. Do that, and I'll make sure you land on your feet when this is over. Her relief was palpable. Thank you, she whispered. I'll send everything tonight. As I walked back to my car, I felt the final pieces of my plan falling into place. Catherine thought she could bury me in legal battles. Fine. Let her try. I had truth on my side. And now, I had evidence of her attempted fraud. That evening, as I reviewed Margaret's files, my phone buzzed. Andrew. Mother's calling an emergency board meeting tomorrow, he said without preamble. She's going to try to force through a lawsuit against you. I know, I replied calmly. You know? He sounded startled. I know everything, Andrew, including what your mother's been planning for years. Silence stretched between us. The question is, I continued, what are you going to do about it? He hesitated. What do you mean? I mean, are you going to keep standing by while she destroys the company your father built? While she burns everything down rather than admit she was wrong? What choice do I have? There's always a choice, I said softly. You just have to be brave enough to make it. The next morning, I dressed carefully in my favorite power suit. Not one of the ones Catherine had once approved, but one I had bought after leaving Langley Innovations. It was time for the final act. Marcus met me in the lobby of Langley Innovations headquarters, both of us armed with files and evidence. We had timed our arrival perfectly, just as the board members were gathering for Catherine's emergency meeting. Ready? Marcus asked as we stepped into the elevator. Ready. The boardroom fell silent as we walked in. Catherine froze mid-sentence at the head of the table. Andrew sat to her right, Margaret to her left. Both looked pale but determined. What is the meaning of this? Catherine demanded. This is a private board meeting. Actually, I said, setting my files on the table, this is exactly where we need to be. We have evidence of systematic fraud, attempted patent theft, and corporate espionage, evidence that everyone in this room needs to see. How dare you, Catherine began, but the board chairman cut her off. Let her speak, he said, his eyes sharp. Given the company's current situation, I think we all need to hear this. For the next hour, I laid out everything, the documentation of my patents, the evidence of Catherine's attempts to steal them, the proof of her long-term plan to push me out while taking credit for my work. Margaret's files provided the final, devastating pieces of evidence. When I finished, the room was silent. Catherine stood, her face flushed with rage. This is ridiculous. She's trying to destroy this company out of spite. No, Mother, Andrew's voice cut through her protest. All eyes turned to him as he stood, straightening his shoulders. She's trying to save it, from you. Catherine's face went white. Andrew, what are you doing? What I should have done years ago, he said, voice steady, standing up for what's right. The vote was unanimous. Within an hour, Catherine Langley was no longer CEO of Langley Innovations. Within 2 hours, the board had approved my proposal, a partnership with Thomson Medical that would save both companies while protecting my patents. As the board members filed out, already talking about transition plans and damage control, Andrew approached me. "I know it's too late," he said quietly. "Too late for us, I mean. But thank you for showing me what real strength looks like." I nodded, feeling the weight lift from my shoulders. "Take care of the company, Andrew." I paused, meeting his gaze. "Make your father proud." 6 months later, I sat in my new office at Thomson Medical, looking out over the Atlanta skyline. The wall behind my desk displayed my patents, not hidden away in a lab, but proudly showcased for everyone to see. My phone buzzed with a news alert. Langley Innovations announces successful merger with Thomson Medical. Former CEO Catherine Langley retires. I smiled, thinking of how far I had come from that day in the boardroom when Catherine had dismissed me as just a hobbyist playing at business. Now, I was on the board of directors at one of the largest medical technology companies in the country. My innovations were saving lives. And I was finally, truly free. Victoria had taught me one last valuable lesson. Success isn't just about having the right patents or the right technology. It's about knowing your worth and being brave enough to fight for it. As I turned back to my work, I noticed a small package on my desk. Inside was a familiar object, the robot figurine from my college days, the one that had started me on this path. With it was a note, in Andrew's handwriting. This belonged with its creator. "Thank you for teaching me what real business looks like, A." I placed the figurine on my desk, a reminder of where I started and how far I had come. Catherine had tried to write me off as just another hobbyist, but she had forgotten the most important rule of business. Never underestimate a woman with nothing left to lose and everything to prove. What do you think? I stood my ground when they tried to erase me, and I refused to let them define my worth. It wasn't easy, but I knew if I walked away silently, I'd be letting them win. Now, I want to hear from you. What would you have done in my place? Would you have fought, or would you have let them push you out? If you've ever been overlooked, underestimated, or dismissed, share your story. Let's talk about what it takes to stand up for yourself, even when the odds are against you. Leave a comment and tell me, have you ever had to prove your worth when no one else saw it? Know your worth. No one will fight for your value if you don't fight for it first. If you're in a workplace that doesn't respect you, a relationship that dims your light, or a situation where you're expected to stay silent, remember this: you don't need permission to claim what's yours. Sometimes walking away isn't losing, it's winning on your own terms. Success isn't about who gives you a chance, it's about having the courage to take it yourself. So tell me, what's one thing you'll stop accepting from others today?